They say that where there's water, there's life. And in the desert, where there's water, there's humans. Today we are at a site that has been home to both ancient and modern humans. Thousands of years ago, native peoples of the Paiute tribe inhabited this area. They fished, they hunted, they gathered pine nuts, and they made these rocks here their home. So this is such a cool spot here that most people just drive right by, but it's really worth stopping and looking around and really stepping back in time. You can see here there are several morteros, and you can see how well preserved they are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe there's even more here under the cover of the brush. Let's look around some more. Oh, check this out. So you have several other morteros, 1, 2, 3 at least. And look how deep this mortero is. This was ground for decades and decades. If you look closely, you can also see very, very faint petroglyphs. There's 2 bighorn sheep here, and there's several others. These petroglyphs must be extraordinarily old. Normally when we see petroglyphs, we can make them out fairly well, but in this spot here, they have become so faded. What a spot to have come upon though, as a traveler in ancient times. Water, shelter, and an abundance of food. You can see here, it looks like there's a snake petroglyph. It's easy to come to a site like this and not see anything, to pass it right by, but when you start looking really, really closely, that's when you start to notice the depth of habitation and the history. Right here you can see there is kind of like a sunburst, and over here you have 3 circles with lines radiating out from the top and from the bottom. My guess is that so many of the petroglyphs that were once here have been lost to time, undocumented, just far too old to ever see again. You can definitely see really faint remnants of bighorn sheep here. Some people believe that the bighorn sheep petroglyph is the outward manifestation of the shamanic vision quest meant to evoke the spirit of the animal for hunting. So I want to show you something that I think is going to be really, really cool. I was looking around the ground and noticed this shiny piece of rock down here. I'm gonna go ahead and unearth it. Beautiful piece of obsidian. You can see the chipping clearly, some kind of cutting tool used by the natives. Of course, I'm gonna go ahead and put this right back where I found it, cover it up, and let some other lucky person have the same experience that I did finding these kind of things. So we're gonna go ahead and peek inside this little cave here and see if there's any petroglyphs inside. This would have been a perfect place to get out of the sun and into the shade. Oh, check this one out here. This one is clearly much more visible. It looks like some kind of anthropomorph, maybe a frog man. Look at those buggy eyes, the frog-like hands. Very cool. Definitely old, but definitely the work of ancient man. You can see here spiral petroglyph, another sunburst petroglyph. Someone who from 1999, Biff Baker, thought that he must be as important as C.J. Gilmore from June 10, 1906. So in the early 1900s, when the LA DWP began to build the LA Aqueduct that drains the Eastern Sierra down towards Los Angeles. This spot right here, which was once a stage stop for travelers going up and back from Cerro Gordo, which was one of the biggest silver producing mines in the nation, a railroad line was put in here. I think it was the Southern Pacific. And of course, this spot that we're currently standing at became a very popular spot. There were actually 2 hotels, the first of which burned down, and then again in 1918 a second was built. The second survived many, many decades. It was a fishing resort. People traveling up and down the new highway 395 would stop here. There was a service station, there was a post office. But in 1989, a fire ravaged the area. By 2000, all of the remaining buildings besides the post office had been bulldozed. Check this out up here. You have this old curvilinear style pictograph here. What an interesting contrast between ancient and modern art. Let me show you some other modern art. Cigars and groceries at Olancha. How cool. This looks like it's probably one of the old signages from the early 1900s. Almost invisible to the naked eye is this old sign for the service station. It's only after I used ID Stretch that I could make out the word garage. Some of these may be advertisements for the businesses that were here to attract customers on their way up to Cerro Gordo or to the Midland Trail. The Roosevelt Midland Trail was the first transcontinental auto route that ran from Washington, D.C. through to California. And then these people have clearly inscribed their names over what is clearly here an very old pictograph panel. Oh, this is incredible. Now there's a bighorn sheep that we can recognize. Oh, look at this one. Whoa, that is so cool. Another human-like form. I imagine the people who came out here in the early 1900s and built this stage stop knew about all these petroglyphs. You can see the remnants. What an interesting contrast between the petroglyphs that are hundreds or thousands of years old and modern man's wiring. Check this out. Up here, you have an ancient grinding stone. I'm not going to climb up there, but you can see how that surface there has been worn down, and same with this right here. So someone would have sat up here on that rock probably and ground maybe pine nuts, broken open the seed. And right up here, you have this other bighorn sheep petroglyph. What a beautiful symbol for this area. What an absolutely cool place that I'm so glad to have spent some time at, observing, investigating, enjoying, and thinking about what life would have been like for the people who were here years ago. So in the late 1950s, with the creation of the new Highway 395, everything here changed. The road, which once was the hub of town, was diverted 100 yards to the east. And people no longer had a reason to drive through here, to stop at the hotel. They just passed it right by. So we're gonna check out one last spot here, and that's the old post office, which you can see behind me, right over there. So this post office here was constructed in the mid-19-teens, and it is one of the smallest post offices in the entire United States. How wild to think that this building here has been standing since 100 years ago. And as decrepit as it looks, it has stood the test of time. Let's take a look inside. I wonder if that right there is an accurate description of this area. and what might be living underneath the boards here. We are definitely going to watch our step. It's also cautious to not enter these kind of places. The rats and the mice that carry hantavirus tend to live in these types of locations. And so if you stir up the dust and breathe it in, it could be problematic. So we're just gonna observe from outside here. Can you imagine people traveling up to the Midland Trail, people traveling to Cerro Gordo, writing letters from high up in the Inyo Mountains, coming down here, stopping by the post office? Maybe the postmaster here opens the window, you hand him your letter, he tells you, have a great day, and maybe you head back up to Cerro Gordo, maybe you head to Los Angeles. It's crazy to think how times change and how the world that once was no longer is. Does not seem like the most pleasant place to drink a 24 pack of Natty Ice, but whatever floats your boat, my friend. Look at the way here the desert has eaten these insulating panes. All right, guys, well, I've had an incredible time here rummaging around and exploring ancient and modern ruins here. I'm heading up for a couple nights of camping in the Eastern Sierra. So thanks so much for coming along on this episode, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. As always, if you come across a spot like this, please tread lightly and respect the historic and cultural value of these lands. We'll see you next time.